this morning we have with us Elder Pastor George Greaves. Now, Pastor Greaves, he is the director. He's no stranger to us. He is the director of the local branch of the extension of the University of the Southern Caribbean. He's the director. And for the next few moments, a man who I respect, a man of God, a man who absolutely loves the word. He has indicated that his wife is not feeling well today. We want to ask you to remember her in prayer. So he is here more or less in a solo capacity, but nevertheless, for the next few moments, he's going to come and he's going to share with us from the Word of God. Pastor Elder George Greaves.
Thank you, Elder. Just yesterday evening, I think it was, I got news that a very good friend of mine who lives in New York passed. And as we progress today, you will understand why I'm starting with this caution, this note at the very beginning. He was a nurse. He used his own money to purchase a number of tents, small tents, and he traveled across the New York metro area, presenting at health fairs, etc. He strongly believed in the 8 habits of healthy living. In fact, he was one of the strongest advocates for health reform that I've known. He experienced some complications at his doctor, and the doctor thought he should be rushed to hospital immediately. This health addict, not a negative term, but a positive term, like most of us, this health addict, nearly all of his organs had failed. He died moments after getting to the emergency room. A strong advocate of health reform. I love the song that was just rendered for us, do you? Yes. It's great assurance. Yes. It's great assurance that no matter what our situation is, we have a Jesus that loves us, takes care of us, and no matter what, looks out for us. I'm so glad that we do have Jesus. What will we do without him? I don't know about you, but life will be unbearable without the presence of Jesus every single day. So the Apostle John, writing to his friend Gaius, used these words of admonition that we know too well. Beloved, and you can say them with me if you know them. Beloved, I wish above all things that you may prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers. A great promise, prayer, admonition, whatever you want to call it. It's been a well-rehearsed text of nearly all Seventh-day Adventists. We fully accept the admonition, we think, but we only tend to focus on the good health element. What we eat, whether we are vegetarians or not, whether we have adequate amounts of fresh air or not. Today I want to take you down a different road as we talk about what John was actually telling his friend, his brother, Gaius. And I want you to focus now on maybe the last part of that verse. He says that he wants us to prosper. He wants us to prosper. He wants us to prosper. I'm not sure you heard that yet, so let me say that again. He wants us to prosper. That's a suggestion. There's an implication that we need to be a little better at the prospering thing, do you think? We are not where we need to be in terms of prospering. I know that as good Adventists and as wealthy as we are, maybe I'm a bad Adventist, but as wealthy as we are, we tend to think about money when we think about prosperity. We think about getting lots and lots of dollars. But we are reminded by Solomon and others that if we have all the money of in the world and we don't have Jesus, we have nothing. Christians are dying from stress and anxiety and stress-related issues. And we're not noticing that. You see, because we think that it was the cancer, or we think that it was maybe the cardiovascular problem. But I want to carry you back to what Ellen White said and what many researchers have said about what we are experiencing. What about the social and the mental condition of the members of our church? You see, despite all of the achievements of the Seventh-day Adventist Church and all the statistics we quote about what happens in the environs of Loma Linda University, we are dying just as fast as everybody else. So I'm not quite sure if those statistics are not constituting a false argument. Because they are samplings of what happens in the environs of Loma Linda University. And we have not realized that despite the fact that we have the best hospitals in the world, the most powerful health message. In fact, if you visit the Florida hospitals in the Orlando area of Florida, you will be really, really pleased at what you see. But many of our brothers are still dying at a fast rate. What's the problem? Is it that God is not looking out for us? We boast in our past achievements, but we're not focusing enough on what we need to focus on in our present life. Bradley University, in a study done fairly recently, supports the concept proposed by Ellen G. White that she mentioned back in the 1800s, that there is a strong relationship between poor health, physical health, and poor mental health. Bradley University further suggests that there's a relationship between premature death and poor mental health. I want you to go with me. I'm going somewhere that I want to take you. Because above all things, like John, I want to say to this church today, I wish that you be in good health and that you prosper. The Mental Health Foundation of the United States of America further suggests that anxiety and depression have been linked to a 50, I want you to listen to this well, anxiety and depression have been linked to a 50% increase in persons dying from cancer. 50%. And a 67% increase in persons who experience heart diseases. What did I say? These studies have shown that our mental health is very closely related to the cancer that's ripping through our churches and our congregations and the cardiovascular problems. We're not talking enough, I suggest, about these quiet, silent killers in our congregation. I'm going to spend some time today to look at them. And I'm going to go somewhere that may be a bit uncomfortable for some of us, but I invite you to take the journey with me, because I'm not going to leave you stranded. I'm going to bring you back to Jesus at the end of this sermon. I'm going to tell you what Jesus can do for you, how Jesus can heal you, how Jesus can cure some of the problems you're experiencing. But why is it that we are not talking about depression and anxiety and fear, etc.? What are the reasons why our church leaders and our preachers and others have left these things out of the pulpit. In fact, we spend a whole lot of time on prophecies and Sabbath keeping and all the other really good doctrines of the church, but our members are still dying. And in many instances, they're stressed and dying from situations that they did not have to die from. We are not as healthy as we claim to be. And if you doubt me, when I came back to Barbados to live, I was shocked at how such a small nation could have such a large section in the newspapers with obituaries. That was a matter of concern. You see, you turn on the radio or wherever the obituaries are posted, and you say to yourself, I never knew she was ill. She has died so suddenly. Not really. Her death was coming along for a while as silent anxiety, but we were not aware of it. We were not conscious of it because our minds were focused more on other things. A Harvard University quantitative meta-analysis of 200 articles established that there's a direct link between optimism and good cardiovascular health. I want to hear that say that again because I only see the doctor acknowledging that. There's a direct link between optimism and good cardiovascular health. Anxiety, depression, and fear are taking us out faster than any other problem. I want to repeat that. Anxiety, depression, and fear are taking us out faster than any other problem. We need to be careful. We need to start to think about this. So what are we really fearful of, you ask? What are the things that are causing us to be anxious and to be worried and to sometimes experience depression? Let me be cautious before I go further to explain to you that some anxiety is good because anxiety provides the adrenaline that keeps us moving. The problem is when we have such high levels of anxiety that we're no longer able to function well. Anxiety grips us and takes over our lives. So let's define anxiety for you. And I want you to listen up to this. Let's listen up. It's a feeling of worry. And remember, 2 seconds ago, I talked about optimism, did I? So anxiety is a feeling of worry, nervousness, typical about an imminent event or something with uncertain outcome. So let me ask you, church, after we've been anxious and worried and depressed, how does that really solve the problem at hand? It really doesn't. It really doesn't. There needs to be more confidence in Jesus to help us with these problems. But I don't want to come here today and be all theoretical, because also we hear too much about Jesus solving the problems when there's a role for me and a role for you, a function that you have to fulfill in your own life and in the lives of others. Jesus many times supplies the power and the strength and the grace, but he leaves us to do some things, doesn't he? There's something that he wants us to do. The National Institute of Health suggests that occasional anxiety is not our problem. All of us get anxious sometimes about something. It is when there's a frequent and continuous flow of anxiety in our bodies. Anxiety also comes by a number of generic names, other names that we may hear about. I may have just mentioned, like fear but then we want to think of the specific types of anxiety that seem to bother us more. generalized anxiety disorder, panic, and different phobias. Some of us are afraid and we don't even know what we're afraid of. We are worried and we don't even understand why we're worried. And that happens to all of us sometimes, doesn't it? But I want to now start to take you in the direction that we want to go today. Because there are many curable and avoidable reasons for anxiety. I said to a couple of our brethren just now before we came up here that maybe, and I'm looking down at this congregation now, and I think my statistics are a bit off today, but maybe about 67, 70% of every congregation is female. Yes or no? But then who are the leaders? The men. Is there a problem with that? I'm hearing a yes and I'm hearing a no. But go with me as we speak on this. You see, we live in a non-woman Western society. Let me say that again. We live in a non-woman Western society where it seems as though most things are controlled by men. Theologically, that's not a problem. Theologically, that's good. But practically, as we shall discover in the next few minutes, we have many problems we need to look at. Biblical theology suggests that men can lead, should take leadership roles. But in a practical way, it looks as though that also is a problem. I just said that we are living in a non-woman society, Western society. What do I mean by that? It does appear that the ladies in our churches, in our communities, because of things that are done and perpetuated by males, are caused to endure more stress than the men. That's a problem. That's a real problem. So, gentlemen, can you indulge me for the rest of my presentation to zero in on some of these problems? Calls to the National Sexual Hotline in the U.S. increased by over 200% over the last few days as the United States of America and the rest of the world watched the process to elect a Supreme Court judge. Sexual hotlines, the calls increased by over 201%. I don't know if there's a single person in this congregation that does not know personally or know about a female who has been raped or sexually abused by some weird man. Many of our young ladies in our churches have experienced some form of unwanted sexual encounter with some male person in the church, sometimes leaders in the church. Maybe that has been your experience. Or maybe it has been the experience of a friend, a daughter, a sister, etc. But the incidences of sexual abuse are way higher than we anticipate. In fact, I don't have a statistic for Barbados, but every 90 seconds, a woman is abused in the United States of America. Every 90 seconds. I said here some months back that the president of the North American Division of Seventh-day Adventists has conducted research and found that 20% of the women, all the women who come to church every Sabbath in Seventh-day Adventist churches, 20% of the women have been abused in some way during the week. That's not an amen moment. It's a moment of serious concern. Because if they are members of the church, with husbands who are members of the church, the abuse most likely is coming from Seventh-day Adventist men and leaders in our church. There is some lady sitting here today whose experience that was. And you know what's even more painful and ironic about it? Is that those very men come to church on the Sabbath, and they're the best preachers and the best teachers and the best elders, etc. The Me Too movement in the United States of America has brought many of these situations to the forefront. But maybe, and hear me out on this, maybe we need a Me Too movement at church too. Many of our ladies in the church have been abused in one way or another by spouses or relatives. So it asks me to beg the question of you: does the marriage vow give license to rape? We have many women living with unspoken instances of abuse at the hands of unscrupulous men, some of them right here, and many of them holding positions. I've known and heard of pastors in our church also guilty of this. As a trained person, sometimes you look at the congregation and you understand the agony that many persons may be going through, but they're just making it to church one more Sabbath, just to get a little help somehow, and no one seems to notice. I was in a panel discussion at the Black Rock Church last Sabbath, and one of the panelists said that there are many fathers, even in the church, who think that it is their role to introduce their daughters to sex. And she is a practicing counselor in the field. That means that she is hearing about this from her clients that come to her. Isn't that a problem? I stood on the steps of a certain building. I will not identify specifics because I don't want you to start thinking who or what I'm talking about. And I watched a mother relating to her daughter, and I watched the rudeness of the daughter to her mom, and I concluded that there must be a message being given at home that's telling her that that's allowed. And the only one that message could have been coming from, originating from, would be the father in that house. That man, that father, is a church leader. We have many adult women in our congregations who can still clearly remember the times some time back when they were children, when someone molested them or abused them in some way, maybe at church. So can you really imagine how our women feel carrying around these burdens, these heavy burdens for all their lives, and there's no one to talk to about it? Can you just imagine the burden? It is okay to sing "We Are Marching to Zion" and all those great heavenly songs, but when we are struggling with these problems, we may not make it to Zion. Because these problems open up doors for the devil to come in and destroy us even more. And then when some of these ladies we're talking about give their lives and come to Jesus and become active members of the church, the men in our church, the leading men in our church, are busy talking about hairstyles and dress length and all those types of things. And not that in principle that conversation should be had, but the gist of the matter is the care and concern we have for the ladies in our church. I know that much of what I'm saying today may arouse certain memories, may create certain feelings of guilt, but I'm convinced, church, that there's some things that need to be said to God's church. If we're going to heal, we have to heal in all ways possible. Not just Sabbath keeping, the healing must be right across our entire life. I was very sad watching the trial of, well, not trial, but it looks like a trial, the conversations around the claims Dr. Ford brought. And I watched as the men turned the focus off of Dr. Ford with a cursory statement about how they thought that she was meaningful, etc. And they turned the focus on taking care and preserving the reputation of one of the members of the Boys Club. We need to focus more, church, on bringing some joy back to the ladies in our church. It makes me remember a novel that I did while in university. The story of Hester Prynne, Nathaniel Hawthorne's book, where the author, where Hawthorne suggested Hester had to wear a big scarlet letter on her chest saying adulterer. And the man who slept with her and caused her to be pregnant was the priest that conducted the trial. What are we doing? What are we really doing, church? We have so many ladies who are carrying around such heavy burdens. And let me get more specific now about some of the burdens that even create more anxiety. You may know one of these ladies. She pays all the bills in the house. You know why? Because the husband doesn't have enough to spread around all the other illegitimate children and the house. Is that abuse? Yes, it surely is. In many instances, the boys and girls in that relationship are terribly stressed also because they're not seeing daddy as often as they shall see him. So how about the mother, the lady who lost the child she thought she would get in childbirth? And a couple of weeks after, nobody remembers about that. Our church has no clubs, no organizations for women who have that experience. And gentlemen, I want you to know there's a significant number of women here in the church, in this congregation, who have experienced childbirth. Some years ago, Dennis and I experienced that. And I was blown away when a Methodist church met us even before we had a chance to leave the ward, to provide help, counseling, security. We don't do that, do we? We are thinking about other things. Our focus is not on helping through those situations. The loss of a child is a painful experience, and we let it slip by with no help, no counseling. The men of the church who shall be the deacons to help in these situations, and even some of the deaconesses who should be there in these situations, they don't pay too much attention. I want to bring attention to this today because I think it's important. We don't really understand, do we? Or we say to ourselves, it happened to me and I got over it, so she'll get over it. It is not as easy as that. We really don't understand. We don't really feel the pain. Many of our ladies are dying with all sorts of strange diseases, weird diseases. What can we do? What help can we give our daughters? What help can we provide to the mothers in the church, our sisters, the lovely women sitting in our congregations today? What help can we provide? My mother died at the early age of 68, and I wondered why. When I went to visit with her a couple of days before she died, the doctors said that cancer had affected every single node anywhere in her body. Mark you, it was cervical cancer, but it spread throughout her body. Now that I understand better, I know that it really wasn't cancer that took her. And I'll tell you why. I reflect back on the times, many Friday evenings, when my dad, who was most often on weekends a drunkard, and during the week another person, when he came home and in his drunken state called my mother a black, I must use the word, a black bitch. When he said that, something went through my body. Just because he was of fairer skin than she was. I remember how she struggled and did all sorts of jobs just to keep us in Christian education, and that was not really a concern to him. I remember when she resigned her job in government, which was pensionable, and went to work in one of our institutions right here in Barbados, to be slapped in the face by another worker. I also remember even that following her through to her death, after leaving her job, which was pensionable, to go to give work service to our church. I remember how the church leaders told her that really she didn't work with them long enough to get death benefits, and she could have gotten those in the government job she had. And as I reflected back on those things, I say to myself even now that it wasn't cancer that took her so quickly. It was all the stress that she carried around for me, my sister, and my dad. And I watched her as she stood up to him for truth, never budging on her Christian beliefs, never moving to the left or to the right, and always smiling. I had no idea of the stress that was going on the inside. You have no idea what the women in our church, our churches, our congregations, you have no idea what they're going through. So you thought I was coming here to preach or teach or talk about vegetarianism or maybe right amongst of water, etc. You see, we may live without some of these, but anxiety and depression will surely take us. It will surely take us. High blood pressure, cardiovascular problems, and all sorts of other things that are symptoms of what's going on in our body that we don't even seem to understand. You just have no idea what we can do to help the ladies of our church. You see, the reality is, I said at the beginning, the men are the leaders, but the women are carrying the church. It's the women who are carrying the church. It's the women who do the bulk of the work. I personally believe that Jesus has a special place in heaven for all women who have gone through the things we have discussed. And I believe he's going to have a big special welcome carpet for them. And I believe that he's going to hug them so tightly that they will experience for the first time how it is to be really, honestly loved by a person. So it's not as easy as I say it, but women need to turn to Jesus a bit more, ladies. But I'm not going to let the men of our church get away with that so easily. Shall I? So I wonder today, as I close, if there's at least one man in this congregation to stand up today, I mean stand up on your feet today, and say, I will do something. In some way, at some time, I will help. Is there a man that is willing to stand to say that? My brother, you are noble. You're brave. You stood first. You didn't wait for anybody else to stand. You're up to your feet immediately. Are there men here who will say, I have failed my wife, I have failed my daughters, I have neglected their pain and their anxiety, and I too want to stand, I too want to say, I want to do something in my family to help the situation. I want to stand with the women in the church. Now, I'm going to be a bit brave today. There are many appeals that we make as preachers where you have options to do or not to do. I dare say today that there's no man sitting in this congregation who has an option not to do. And if you can't be strong enough to pledge to do something, then there are some things that you need to do. You need to take a close look at yourself. You need to ask God, what do you need to do with me to help the ladies in our congregation? I will protect the young ladies in our church, you want to say. I will stand there for them. I will never molest them or sexually abuse them. I can't dare for that to happen through me. You want to stand for that, do you? You want to say that if you by chance knew or know of one of the ladies who's been badly treated, that you will seek some help for her. You want to be a strong enough man to say you will do that. And Jesus is watching you, not the church. Jesus is watching you. Thank you, gentlemen. You may sit. Those of you that were courageous enough and brave enough to stand to say that you will do something, God will strengthen you. God will give you the power to do what you will to do. And imagine He may even give you a little more strength than you have now because he knows that you're taking on a double responsibility to take care of yourself and the women in your life. But I want to stay a little longer. And I want to speak to the ladies of our church. You sometimes think because nothing is happening that God is not looking on. I want to assure you today that my God is seeing. And not only is he seeing, but sometimes as humans, many times as humans, we will to do what we don't do. Whenever Jesus wills to do, he does. And he does it in completeness. So if you need a special prayer today, ladies, because you know of a friend who needs some help with anxiety, depression, or any of the things that we spoke about, I want you to stand because we're going to pray for these ladies. Today, I have invited a social worker and a clinical psychologist to pay attention because I also want to say if you think you have a personal issue that you want to speak to a professional about, we are going to be staying by here for a while that you can talk to us. Because we are serious about what we are doing. And maybe, ladies, sometime before some unfortunate situation occurred in your life. And you have never, ever forgotten. But today you want some special help from Jesus to live beyond that problem. You too can stand because we'll pray for you. We'll ask God to give you strength and to give you the courage. And today I make a special call for all the male elders of this church to join me up front. All the male elders of this church who are present here to join me up front. This is my third appeal. I'm so serious about what we discussed today because it's so important that we need to make a commitment to do something about it. So I'm calling on the elders of the church to join me right up front. Because there may be some member, some man who has one of the problems we discussed, some lady who needs special prayer, and we're going to invite them to the front at this time. We're going to ask you to turn and face the congregation. And we're going to do a special prayer for everyone who needs that really, really special prayer. The general prayer is not enough for you. You need to come to the altar. This is the time to come as we pray for you.